Good night. It's 7 o'clock Tuesday night, and one more show of the neighborhood news. If you're watching this show and it's not a Tuesday night, it's because you're watching a repeat show. Please come back next Tuesday and we will have a brand new show for you. We'd like to remind you too, if you like Portuguese news, we're having a Portuguese news every Wednesday night, and we have another show called Amigos, and it's a Portuguese show, Portuguese speaking, that you can watch also on Wednesday nights. So it's Tuesday, and we are in studio with one more guest, and we're going to learn a little bit about the Holocaust Center right here at BCC. With us, we have, and for my guest today is Dr. Ron Weisberger. Thank you for accepting my invitation. And it's funny because I met you during a community event, a community conversation that I got invited through Dr. Wheat, and on my table you were sitting in there, and we started a conversation, and here we are, and to talk about something that I really that I love to learn a lot more about. But let's start by you. We want to know about you, where you were born. You were born here, and let us talk a little bit about you and your background.
First of all, thank you for inviting me. I appreciate it. And it was really nice meeting with you in that community discussion.
Nice setup.
Yeah, it was a very nice setup. Nice lunch.
Yes.
It was very heated discussion we had. It was very good. Well, no, I wasn't born in Fall River. I was actually born in New Jersey. Well, I grew up in New Jersey. I was born in Philadelphia, but I grew up in Atlantic City, New Jersey, which is kind of an odd place because it's a resort.
Really?
Before gambling. So I grew up and lived in New Jersey, and eventually went to college in New Jersey, and then I went to graduate school in Ohio, and eventually went out to lived around Boston, and then I came to Providence, worked there in a college in Providence, and eventually got a job at Bristol Community College 36 years ago.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so that's how I ended up here.
Very good. And any connections between you and the something that you dedicate your days now, the Holocaust? It's any connection there?
Sure. First of all, I'm being Jewish. The Holocaust is something that is always somewhere in the background. My degrees are in history, so I've taught history for many years. And part of like world history or even American history would talk about the Holocaust somewhat. But I frankly didn't get into depth in the Holocaust until about 14 years ago, when a colleague of mine, Dr. Howard Tinberg, and I decided to create a course on the Holocaust for our honors program, which we still teach every spring. It's called Remembering the Holocaust in History and Literature and History. And he's a child of a survivor, and I'm sort of second generation. And we both talk about, we actually wrote a book that came out 2 years ago about teaching the Holocaust, and we talk about how we sort of stayed away from it somewhat because he, of course, his parents survived the Holocaust, but it's lost a lot of his family. I had family, so it's a difficult subject. But we decided to finally confront it and create a course. And in the last 13 years, he and I have learned quite a bit about the Holocaust that we didn't know before. Because it's actually a subject from a historian. He teaches literature and I teach history. Our course kind of brings together. But it's a course in which there's a tremendous amount of literature and history, historical literature which has been researched, and also literature including memoirs, short stories, novels, movies, as we know. Anyway, it's quite extensive.
Do you think with the time that people will start to forget about the Holocaust?
Well, that's an excellent question, and I think part of what we have in mind in our own small way, but it's also discussed nationally and internationally, is that we should not forget it. Not only because of what happened specifically to the Jewish population, but there are others also. There was the Gypsies. First of all, 50 million people died in World War II, and but as far as those who were, who were murdered as a consequence of being Jewish or being a gypsy or being disabled or being gay or whatever, it's important to be aware of what happened then. But also, there's other genocides that have occurred since then. And the late Elie Wiesel, who wrote Night and many other works, who was responsible for, among many other people, creating the Holocaust Center in Washington, D.C., which is, by the way, a monument on the mall that, for the purposes of not forgetting, that it will be there for generations to come, hopefully.
I mean, it is, through the years, we see a lot of documentaries being put together talking about the Holocaust. A lot of testimonies from people that survived that time. But movies, we have a few movies out there, and how they get a lot of awards. So that's how much information it's already out there.
It's part of the popular culture,
exactly.
In a way. Whether for good or bad, in the sense that, because some of it can be distorted.
Exactly. I mean, and for movie purpose, they could create a story, fake families or fake names, just to put a movie together. But what is interesting is, even with places that turned into museums today, still people out there that still say that's never happened.
Yeah. Well, talking about a movie, a recent movie that just came out called Denial, is about a woman, about Professor Deborah Lipset, who accused a man by the name of Irving of being a denier. He was a British historian, sort of, and he brought her to court, sued her for libel. And in the British court, this was in Britain, if you're accused, you have to prove that the person is wrong. It's not the other way around as it is in America. And she eventually won her case, prove it, without a doubt, that the Holocaust occurred. And he was censored. He lost his case against her. But that's a movie that just came out. Sadly, it wasn't extensively shown in some of the movies. I saw it in Providence. You can get it in DVD, but it's a really good movie. It's a Hollywood sort of movie. But I mean, it speaks to that very point about those people who would deny the Holocaust. But the information is so extensive that if you're denying it, it's only for the purpose of some sort of propaganda or prejudice or anti-Semitism or whatever.
Those sites you can still visit.
Oh yeah. In fact, we're hoping next year, working with my colleague, to bring students in our class next year to Poland for a week and go to Auschwitz and Majdanek and a couple other things. But there is all kinds of programs that allow people to go.
Did you visit those sites?
I haven't visited them, and frankly, I mean, I will go next year if we get if we're able to do it. But those who go there, it's not always easy. And again, it's not like, oh, look, here it is.
Exactly.
Millions of people died in these camps, and, but those camps are there. obviously, and the Germans kept very meticulous records. And then we have the survivors.
Exactly.
What we can talk about for the last couple years in our Holocaust Center, we've brought survivors who survived the camps, or well, are they making it up?
Exactly.
I mean,
yeah.
you know, you
I
can
mean,
see,
it's so much.
you can see the things on their hands.
It's so much history that really, somehow, in some way, or something, it's true. And Josh, I go through a lot of history online, and I came up into something, an arrow that I, if you visit my page on Facebook, I think I shared that post because it was somebody that was recognized back in 1980s for as a hero for saving 69 kids during the Holocaust. And the story, it's unbelievable how he asked help to the other countries, including U.S., and was denied. And he had to fake IDs for the kids and everything to get the kids out of those camps. And a great story to be told.
Yeah.
And he was recognized during a show that he was invited, and on the audience, the person asked whoever got helped by him to stand, and it was over 40 people.
Wow.
on the audience.
Right.
That was a kid that he saved.
Right.
So it is a lot of history out there.
Oh yeah, there's. We usually talk about when we talk about the Holocaust, we talk about victims. We talk about perpetrators, those who. We talk about bystanders, and we also talk about rescuers. You know, and I mentioned to you before that we did a whole show because I have people with Portuguese background about Aristide Sousa Mendes. In fact, we did 2 shows. We had a whole conference on him 2 years ago, and then there's a recent movie on him that we showed back here in the fall. We did that along with Luso Centro.
Yes.
I've worked together with Luso Centro. Carlos Almeida is the
Yes.
director, and we worked together. And Sousa Mendes was a consul in Bordeaux when the war broke out. And there were literally thousands of people trying to get out of France who had escaped from Germany or other places and then went to France, and then when France was conquered. And the dictator, Salazar, refused to let people in.
Exactly.
And he told the consuls, do not let these people in. And Sousa Mendes, who was the consul in Bordeaux, what we call a righteous man, said, I cannot keep these people out. And he and his staff spent a week stamping visas. And literally he saved anywhere over 10,000.
Wow.
10,000 people who escaped. They finally caught up with him. He lost his job. He ended up dying penniless because Salazar punished him by being a non-person.
Exactly.
Now he's recognized in his home. There's a Sousa Mendes Foundation, and his home, they're trying to rebuild his home as a kind of museum. But there's an example of someone who risked his life and lost his position, but felt that he had to do what he had to do.
Do you think that we are doing enough to keep the memories alive from the Holocaust?
I don't. That's a good question. Is enough?
Michelle told you that I have tough questions.
No, it's a very good question. But enough is, what is enough? I say that it's interesting that up till into the early 60s, people didn't want to deal with it. Because for a lot of different reasons, even some Jewish people, like in Israel, they wanted to focus on Israel, which came out of the became a country. But then, particularly Adolf Eichmann, you may remember, who was instrumental, who had escaped to Argentina, was captured by the Israelis and put on trial. And that trial became a celebrity. He was eventually executed for what he did. But after that time, people began to become more and more interested. And since that time, there's been literally, thousands of works on the Holocaust. And now, as I mentioned, they have the Holocaust Museum in D.C., which is a national museum. In Europe, there's museums, including Germany, which has actually done not a bad job, in Berlin and other places. There's monument, there's what do you call it? There's buildings and museums and markers. So I think, to some extent, it's pretty much out there. There's an International Holocaust Remembrance Day, which the United Nations sponsors, which is just happened 2 weeks ago. And then in April, there's a Jewish Remembrance Day called Yom HaShoah. And there's programs right now in this area. I belong to the New Bedford Jewish Federation, which has a Holocaust Education Committee. And they sponsor every year a program, including, there's a monument in Buttonwood Park, another example. People may have seen that from this area. And then people have a ceremony there, then they march over to the synagogue in Tel Aviv, Israel, and usually have a program. So I think there's quite a bit. And here's a number of states, not Massachusetts, New Jersey, Florida, a number of other states mandate that it be taught in the public schools. I would like to see that happen here in Massachusetts.
That will be good. For those interested in visiting the Holocaust Museum in Washington, we are visiting, and we spending 3 nights in Washington.
Your family?
No, I'm going to be bringing a bus trip.
Really? When's that?
Yes, that's August 4th, 5th, and 6th. The 3 nights that we spending in Washington, and the Holocaust Museum, it's one of our locations to visit. So if it's anybody out there that wants to experience and come with us, so like I said, put your dates down. August 4th, 5th, and 6th, we are in Washington.
It's a great, I was lucky to get a fellowship last February about this time for a week, to spend a week there with other directors of Holocaust centers. And one of the things we did in this fall, as part of that, is we did a conference for middle and high school teachers in this region. We had over 100 teachers come. And we had a speaker trainer, like from the Holocaust Museum, who did a whole program on propaganda and the Holocaust. And we have, which was really good. So those teachers from Durfee and Conley and other places, middle and high schools, now are taking the material. Every teacher who came got free material, probably about $200 worth of books and DVDs that they can now use in the school. I mean, the more we can spend there, the better. But it's tough to get us. The longer we stay there, less people can go because of work. Right. So what we're thinking is sleeping a Saturday, Sunday, and a Monday. So this way, it's like for somebody, they could ask like a day off, and will be a long weekend. Yeah, good.
And we can still accomplish that. And it's going to be a tour. And we are visiting a lot of museums in the cemetery, and so
who's sponsoring that?
That's the Flint Neighborhood Association.
Oh,
yes,
good.
yes, we're putting. It's one of our bus trips. We have.
Can you go if you're not in Flint in the neighborhood?
Oh yeah, it's open to anybody that wants to go, but that comes as a fundraiser for the Flint Neighborhood Association.
What I would recommend, you need to. It's free, the museum, but you need to get a ticket in advance.
Yes, so we are getting all that because we need to get the hotel, and we have a welcome dinner.
Oh, nice.
The night that we get there, we will have a welcome dinner, and then we will have a farewell dinner at the last night that we spend there. Yeah. So all that's going to be included on the package, and all the museums that we're going to be visiting, and all the sites we're going to be visiting.
There's a new museum on the African American Museum, which is beautiful, right near the U.S. Holocaust Museum. But there's so many museums on the mall.
I know, yeah.
It's and by the way, we're talking about, before I forget, we've had speakers I mentioned from the Holocaust Museum, we're associated with them now, our center, who are survivors. So last year, we had a survivor who came, a woman who her family was hidden about 5 blocks from where the Anne Frank, people know about Anne Frank. So they weren't in the camps, but they were, for 3 years or 2 years, they were hidden in an attic. And she was a young woman. She spoke, came from Washington. And so they have, and today, on March 23rd, we have another speaker from the Holocaust Museum, a man named Julius Mann, who will be here and at the college.
So when is that event's gonna happen?
That's going to be March 23rd. It will be at 4 o'clock on at the BCC in this building, the Jackson Art Center. What we did last year, and we're going to do it this year. Last year, she also spoke at Conley High School, and I talked with the principal. Hopefully, we can have them speak either there or at another school, so that he speak here and then maybe speak at one of the local high schools.
We have a few minutes. Let's talk about the center.
Okay.
You have a location here on campus, so
We do.
Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah. Well, the center sort of came out of the course that Dr. Timberg and I teach, and also the federation that I mentioned. It is the purpose of it, as there are centers around the country, is to provide education on the Holocaust and also other genocides. So what we've done is we have conferences, like we had the one I just mentioned. Last spring we had a conference on the Cambodian genocide, and this coming, the date is March 31st, it's on a Friday from 9 to 3. We're having one on Native American genocide. And this is going to be exciting, and it's open to the public.
It's open to the public.
They can contact me at the BCC. And there's a 508-678-2811, extension 2444, if you want to call me about that. Or
2444. So a person can call BCC and just dial the extension number.
Right, ask for me or left a message. But you're free to come to the conference. It's we're going to have a speaker. I mean, the Native American genocide is different than some others because it extended over a longer period of time, obviously. But we're going to have a speaker from Columbia University who is an expert in this area. And then we're going to have a panel of local Native Americans, Narragansetts and Wampanoag and others, who will be talking about what's going on today and their involvement. So that should be very exciting. And then we're going to have the Wampanoag singers in the afternoon, a whole program. So it's going to be quite
an event.
An event. So that's an example. We do these conferences. We also do bring in speakers. So as I mentioned, we have March 23rd at 4 o'clock. We have a survivor who will be coming, speaking about his experience. We have a library. We're on the second floor of the library here, Learning Resource Center, room 200A. And we have about 500 books and DVDs and other material which people can take out. Fairly extensive. Our library has other books as well, but you can come to our center and borrow books if you're interested in that. So we're providing resources for the community, whether you want to read it, watch it, come to our conferences, come to hear our speakers. But basically to be aware of not only the Holocaust itself, as you say, not to forget, but that there are other genocides, like the Cambodian genocide. Talk about Native American. We'll do something next year, I think, on Rwanda, which happened, in the 90s, or in Yugoslavia. Sadly, really, the part of the idea is not only learning what happened, but thinking about how can we avoid future genocides, because that's one of the scourges of mankind, that a group of people, just because they happen to be Jewish or Native American or whatever, can be targeted for annihilation. Women, children, whatever. I mean, it's mind-boggling that we can be doing these things to each other.
Exactly. Yeah.
So, you know, like any educational institution, we assume that if people learn more about what has happened and learn about how to relate to each other, that those kinds of things can be avoided. Not easy.
Yeah, yeah. and very good and interesting is that we don't, when we talk about this, this goes down on the generations, going to go down to my daughters,
Exactly.
which they're very interesting on the Holocaust. They're always watching videos about, especially my youngest one.
Really?
She loves to watch history about the Holocaust. And my oldest one, when I mentioned that we were putting a trip together for Washington, the first thing that she said, it's to go to the Holocaust Museum. So she could tell, you know, I want to go to the White House, or I want to go,
Right.
you know, here and there. It was the only thing that she said, if I'm going to Washington, the only place I want to go is the Holocaust Museum. So, and it's good because I know that will roll over to my second generation, you know, and so it's a very interesting thing to keep up.
Right.
But for now, we are running out of time. You see, half an
Already?
hour,
Gee, you're
half
right.
an hour, and there was no break in 15 minutes, so we made it. And Ron, again, thank you for accepting my invitation to be here. Thank you for the work that you're doing with the center, and every time that you have something that you want us to announce it, I will be glad to do it.
By the way, I'm looking at my schedule. We do have one other speaker. We have a speaker named Lawrence Langer, who is one of the chief researchers in Holocaust literature.
Okay.
He taught at Simmons. He's retired, but we use his book in my class. And he's going to be here April 6th, again at 4 o'clock.
Oh, we have plenty of
Thursday.
time to announce that one.
Right.
So for now, Ron, thank you again
Thank you
for the
for inviting
invitation.
me. I
Thank you.
appreciate it.
Thank you for accepting. Thank you, Michelle, for being on the other side, on the controls. And we'll be here next week for one more show of the Neighborhood News. Have a good night.